Good evening, everybody. Here to talk Ukraine, latest news. John Arvosa here in Chicago instead of Washington, D.C., because I'm visiting Mutter. There we go. TikTok set up. Hello, everyone. Sorry, started a little late. The nephew decided to barbecue, so I decided to get a little meal. Oops, microphone. I decided to get a little meal before we started. Here's my microphone. There we go. Exactly. Cue the Russians. The Russians have been hot and heavy lately. I was not napping. I was having a quick little Italian sausage and hot dog before our little get together. Woo! I have actually too many pages of notes today, which I'm get my microphone closer too, which I'm a little surprised because anyway, we'll see. YouTube is live, yes, and TikTok is live, and everything is live. Hello, everybody. We'll give the usual a minute for TikTok to catch up with us, but we are good. So what is going on, folks? Yes, NAFO. We should talk about NAFO. Oh, and I've got to write a quick note to myself about taxis. Oops, where is my pen? Hold on a second, guys. I'm not going to find my pen. That's too bad. I had my pen a second ago, and it's gone, which means it's probably on the floor. Anyway, hello, everybody. Bonsoir. John Arvosa is here to talk Ukraine and to find my errant pen that has gone away. All right, you know what? I'm not going to worry about the pen. Just remind me to talk about Russian taxis with you. I want to start the night with that because it's a very funny story. So NAFO, let me tell you first what NAFO is. So NAFO, I think I mentioned this the other night, is a very funny meme going around. NAFO, which is a takeoff of NATO, which is NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO, you know, is the organization uniting the U.S., Europe, Canada. Thank you for those, Ellie or L. All of us together in a defensive alliance, basically, where we all promise to defend each other, right? NATO. And someone, and we don't know who, but somebody created the acronym NAFO, NAFO, North Atlantic Fellas. I believe it's North Atlantic Fellas Association, FELLAS. And as their mascot or their logo, they've chosen this Shiba Inu dog picture that goes back, I guess, to like 2013 or something. I know it because it's also the dog that's used to symbolize Dogecoin, a kind of a cheap cryptocurrency, a beloved but cheap cryptocurrency. But they've taken this dog, and you will see it all over the place, NAFO, and basically they sort of counter Russian misinformation, but exactly, Deemer's saying to piss off the Russians. It's a meme to piss off the Russians. Thank you, Ali, for the corgi. Speaking of dogs, and the Russians have been livid. The Russians and their sympathizers in the West are convinced it's a CIA, that NAFO is a CIA plot. And people responding to them are saying, there ain't no way the CIA or any other government agency could have created something as effective of a meme as NAFO. So that's what NAFO is. So you will see more and more people. General Hertling, who I love, my general I like to follow, he, I believe, took it as his symbol. Let me show you really quick. This is funny. So the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, the Minister of Defense, yesterday put out a tweet notifying people that he as well has adopted the NAFO logo as his, first of all, I showed you this yesterday. This is because of NAFO, is the Shiba Inu. And this is, and it was an iconic photo of Zelensky and his wife on Independence Day, and they did a cartoon of it with the Shiba Inu dog. That's NAFO. Now, the Ukrainian defense minister, I want to show you too, because it just goes to how good these people are. Oh, I've got to find this. Hold on. I mean, I could always, I texted it to my nephew. Hold on, I'll pull it there. It is, hang on a sec. It was funny. My nephew didn't even get why I texted this to him at first. I'm like, look at the guy's picture. Okay, here we go. This is the Twitter profile of the Ukrainian Minister of Defense. And look at his photo is now a Shiba Inu dog in a suit. Check it out. The Ukrainian Minister of Defense. And that's his photo, a dog. That is NAFO. And I will also say it goes to tell you something about the Ukrainians, because imagine imagine like the Secretary of Defense here in America using a dog meme as his picture online, right? And imagine the kind of government where you'd say, hey, I've got this great idea for the Secretary of Defense to take a dog meme and make it his photo. People would kill you for suggesting it. Nobody would send it up to the Secretary himself. I can't imagine that happening here in America. And I also can't imagine the Secretary doing it. I can imagine the Secretary saying, well, that's kind of funny, and that kind of, but not doing it. So it kind of boggles my mind that they have such a meme culture in Ukraine that they would do something like this. Anyway, that's what NAFO is, people asked. The second thing is we, my friends, are sponsoring a Ukrainian M777 howitzer artillery gun. We are getting our message on it. We raised enough money. The folks at Sign My Rocket reached out to me last night, and this guy was really nice, kind of beating around the bush. I was like, hi. But he basically asked how much we'd raised. He saw that we were raising money, and I told him we had raised $4,000, and he said, you know what? That'll be enough instead of the $5,000 that they're requiring. He said $4,000 is enough, and that I could tell people publicly. And I said, well, thank you. I will give you credit. So we are getting our message on the side of an M777. I learned from the military folks, it's 777, not 777. Artillery unit howitzer. Let me, I will show you. Here we go. The picture of what the gun is, just so you guys know what I'm talking about. Here you go. I did this for TikTok. I put our TikTok message. So that is what a howitzer looks like. That is what it looks like with our message on it. But that's what, now look at the men in front of it to get a sense of how big that gun is, right? The guys are half the height of it in front. You guys can see. But look at how short the guys are in front of it. That's how tall the gun is. So that is where they're going to write it. The length of the gun. I have put a little contest up, not a contest, but I put a little thing up on TikTok and on Twitter and on our Discord, aravosis.discord.com, asking folks for suggestions. I've told people that I am not going to base it on the vote solely, but I will take the vote into account. And I will say one that I had come up with this morning just on a lark is doing the best so far. I thought, you know what? It's got to be short enough, right? I mean, we want a long thing, but we want to also end it with like -- at Aravosis TikTok, we thought, just to kind of, even though I know you YouTube guys are here too, we couldn't do TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. So we thought TikTok might be the sexiest to do. But I thought of doing Bucha's Revenge. And then somebody else, I think a Ukrainian, it might have been suggested, what about doing it in English and then Ukrainian? Bucha's Revenge. And now Bucha, you'll recall. Remember Bucha? Bucha is that town that, remember at the beginning of the war, this would have been early April. The Ukrainians are pushing the Russians back from Kyiv, the capital, right? Ukraine's capital. And as they're pushing them back, they're starting to liberate town after town after town north of Kyiv, the capital. Well, one of the towns they liberated was Bucha. And this is the town that the Ukrainians came into, and the media and the Ukrainians both saw just dead civilian bodies everywhere all over this town. Remember, they were just all over this one street in particular. The guy on the bicycle who was still on the bicycle but lying dead because they shot this guy an old man riding a bicycle. Anyway, horrific story of the stuff people did. So anyway, that's Bucha. So I'm going to think about, I let people recommend stuff for a day or two maybe, but I like Bucha because I like that on the side of the gun, because basically I look at it as us sponsoring the gun now. On the side of the gun, I look at it and somebody said, which is perfect, it's a name for the gun. It's also a message for the Russians. Bucha's Revenge. This is Bucha's Revenge. Right? In other words, the shells coming at you are revenge for Bucha, but also the gun is Bucha's Revenge is the name of the gun, which I kind of like. Bucha's Avengers could work too. Although Bucha's Revenge I like because, like I said, it's the noun and it's the verb. So that's what I'm thinking of. We'll give it another day or so. But I think the way we would do it then is Bucha's Revenge -- at Aravosis TikTok, because I'm not sure how to sign it. But I would like to sign it in a way that it is also right. Bucha's Revenge has a lyricism to it as well, which I like. I always like that with my writing, by the way. Studied a lot of poetry, and I've always believed like good writing should have a bit of a lyricism to it. So anyway, I didn't mean to scare off all the TikTokers. Actually, TikTokers, you should be excited. I'm naming this after my TikTok account. We are, just because I see some new TikTokers have come in, we have raised enough money to basically adopt a Ukrainian artillery howitzer, an M777. And they're going to put our message along the entire snout, I'm calling it the snout. You can tell I'm not a military guy. The entire barrel of the gun. And they're going to leave it there for the rest of the war. They're going to take pictures. They're going to take video of it firing. I am very excited. And frankly, you guys, I mean, I corralled you all and beat you up, but you guys are the ones who paid. So thank you so much. I really thought we could do this. Anyway, I'm very excited. Any case, what we can do is at the end, let me go on with the news now. At the end, we will switch over to my Discord, discord.erevosis.com, and we can talk about this a little further. The turret? Okay, we'll talk about it a little further. So let's get back to this. So Putin, Mikhail Gorbachev died the other day, the former Soviet leader. Interestingly enough, very renowned in much of the West because Putin was responsible for basically dismantling the Soviet Union, which was a huge deal. And interestingly, though, Latvia and Lithuanians are not thrilled with Putin because in the final days in power, he oversaw a violent crackdown as the Soviet Union was sort of coming apart, a violent crackdown on Lithuania and Latvia. So obviously mixed record there, but he is a former Soviet leader, dying, very well known, and Vladimir Putin, I say refusing, the Russians say too busy. Vladimir Putin is not going to go to his funeral, to Gorbachev's funeral. Supposedly, he's just too busy. His schedule's really bad. But he went to the hospital or wherever where the coffin was, and they filmed him for 30 seconds in the room with the coffin being very pensive. Kind of gross, but not surprisingly, because Putin believes that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was like the worst thing that ever happened in all of Russian history. So Putin is a guy who thinks the dictatorship was a good thing, thinks that subjugating all of the neighbors, the Baltic states, Ukraine, right, all of these, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, subjugating all these countries as part of the Soviet Union was a good thing. It wasn't. Subjugating Eastern Europe was a good thing because keep in mind, the Soviets were involved in World War II. Obviously, they like to brag about, oh, the Soviet Union won World War II, and they like to pretend like the rest of us had no role. What the Soviets don't tell you, what the Russians don't tell you, is that part of the big reason the Soviets got involved in World War II was because they were planning on stealing all of Eastern Europe, kidnapping it, holding it hostage, and subjugating it, just like they want to do to Ukraine today. They literally occupied Eastern Europe. Germany was split in half. So you had East Germany and West Germany. I once visited East Germany when it was East Germany. I visited East Berlin. And Eastern Europe, disaster. Literally horrific. East Germany, the police state in that place was particularly horrific in East Germany. Very bad police states in places like Romania, horrible dictatorship in Romania. That guy and his wife, literally, Ceausescu, got lined up in the revolution in December. Actually, it was Christmas Day, 1989. I always remember because it was Christmas. There was a popular revolution, lined up against the wall with his wife, and they shot him. This guy and his wife were... So anyway, these are the actions that Putin is lamenting that have gone by. And interestingly enough, like I said, tied into Ukraine, anyway, you get it. So Putin not wanting to attend Gorbachev's funeral, big surprise. The other thing is they're also not having a state funeral, although the Kremlin spokesman said there would be elements of a state funeral in Gorbachev's funeral. State funeral are basically the funerals you have for heads of state in a country. It would be a state funeral. And typically you would have it. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Oh, this was funny. Let me reverse this. I was reading this from a story. So Putin has reportedly ordered Russian troops in eastern Ukraine to take over all of eastern Ukraine by September 15th. And any of you who have a good memory may remember that he did the same thing. What date was it that he was going for? Remember? He had told them to take over all of by September 11th. That was it. Remember? By September 11th, Putin had ordered all Russian troops to take over all of eastern Ukraine. They didn't do it, obviously, because... no, not September 11th. What was the date, guys? Was it September 11th? May 9th was May 9th. That was it. May 9th was it. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm mixing up my dates. May 9th, because it was like the anniversary of the end of World War II or whatever it was. May 9th. We are now at September 1st. But May 9th, Putin had ordered that the troops in Eastern Ukraine must take over Eastern Ukraine by then, or, it's a loss. Well, they obviously didn't. Now he's saying September 15th. The problem is, there are two provinces in Eastern Ukraine that the Russians want. One is called Luhansk, and the other is called Donetsk. And combined, they're called Donbas. So you will often see it referenced as the Donbas. But when they say that, they mean two provinces, two oblasts in Eastern Ukraine. Okay, so Luhansk, which is the westernmost one, bordering Russia, that one the Russians did a pretty good job taking over. Maybe they've got 98% of it controlled, but pretty good job taking over. The other one, Donetsk, they're not doing so well. They had about half of it going in, and maybe they've got 10% more, but they're not advancing. They're advancing a very small amount. I remember I'd read something that in the last month, the Russians have advanced maybe a couple miles, basically, that all the fighting of the last month, how heavy it was, maybe a couple miles in Eastern Ukraine. So the idea that Putin thinks they're going to get all the rest of it in the next 2 weeks is probably laughable. Russian taxis. Thank you, Ashley, for reminding me. So I just saw a story before I came out here that someone, and again, the someone could be anyone. It could be Ukrainians. It could be anonymous. It could be anybody. But someone hacked into the Moscow taxi system and sent every available taxi into downtown central Moscow. Thank you, McFadge. So there's these wonderful pictures and videos of all of downtown Moscow. Actually, I've got a line of it. I think I retweeted it. Let me see here. Or did I take a picture or retweet? Oh yeah. Well, I just have a copy of the tweet. But yeah, here you can see the line of taxis there on the road going into central Moscow, and it just goes on and on and on. But I have to say, I kind of like this one because I'm all for the harsher action against Russia too, but it's kind of funny just to play games with them, But I love that. Bridges. So we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on now. Mind you, we are not going to get super concrete updates from the Ukrainians about what's going on in this counteroffensive, the battle that has started in the last couple of days. They told us this. They've also told us. Remember, they also said that journalists that were embedded with Ukrainian troops would not be able to remain with those troops for at least the next week. And the idea is that Ukraine is being super duper careful about sort of operational security here. So the Russians don't get any information that might help them fight back. Okay. So that also suggests that we're not going to get a ton of information from the Ukrainians. It also means that a lot of the military analysts, I think, are going to be anybody other than a Russian or a North Korean or Chinese maybe is going to be much more careful about what information they let go, right? So Western military analysts might be looking at what's going on, but I think they're going to be very careful about saying, well, it's clear from this movement of these three groups of Ukrainian troops that they're probably going after the town of so-and-so next. That my guess is they're not going to say that kind of thing because they're going to be very, very careful about exactly OPSEC, as it's called, right? Sort of operation security. But nonetheless, what we do know is the Operational Command South said that the recent strike on the Kakhovka Bridge left several additional holes. Kakhovka Bridge is one of those three bridges that I'm always talking about in Kherson province. Kherson, southern Ukraine. Now that I'm in Chicago, I've got to wear my t-shirt map again so I can show you guys. But Kherson province in the south of Ukraine, right north of Crimea. Crimea is the peninsula at the very bottom south of Ukraine that is Ukrainian, but the Russians stole it back in 2014, so the Russians are occupying it. So right north of Crimea, you've got Kherson. Kherson is an oblast, a province. And at the top of Kherson, you've got the city of Kherson, very important, occupied by the Russians, and then some land to the east of it, also occupied by the Russians. Combined, maybe somewhere between 15 and 25,000 Russian troops in that area, north and west of the river. Now, what is important about this, I've explained to you guys before, but I just want to explain again in case anybody's new. You've got the Dnipro River that is cutting through Ukraine, okay? And it kind of starts in the south, goes a little east, goes up, goes west again, cuts through Kyiv, the capital, and then goes north. So if you look at a map of Ukraine, if you find Kyiv, the capital, you'll find the river. And you will see that literally, even though it zigzags, it does cut the country in half. Well, most of the Russian troops occupying Ukraine are in the eastern half. They're east of the river, okay? There is a small contingent of 15 to 25,000 Russian troops north and west of the river. In other words, on the other side, right around Kherson. So what is key here is the Ukrainians have been blowing up these 3 bridges over the river in that area again and again and again because they're trying to isolate the Russian troops that are north and west of the river. Why? Well, you want to start making them run out of supplies. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. So that it's harder and harder for them to get new fuel, new artillery, new ammunition for their guns, okay? New vehicles, if their tanks break down, if their armored personnel carriers break down. If the bridges keep getting destroyed or significantly damaged, thank you, Al. What's happening with these bridges, for example, apparently it's very difficult to take a bridge down with these kind of weapons, the weapons Ukrainians have, but they can severely damage it so that it will not support anything other than maybe people walking across. So the Ukrainians keep bombing the bridge, the Russians keep building it back up. So bottom line is this story is saying the Ukrainians attacked one of the key bridges again, put a number of holes in it, and Ukrainian forces also prevented Russian troops from building a new pontoon bridge over the river near in that area. So that's been important too, because that's how the Russians are getting around it. They're building these pontoon bridges. British Defense Intelligence. I'm going to need my glasses to read you this update. Hello. So today's British Defense Intelligence update is over August 30th and 31st, Ukrainian armed forces continued offensive operations in southern Ukraine, supported by intensive long-range strikes against Russian command and logistics locations across the occupied south. So command is command. So it could be generals, it could be colonels, it could be whoever that's commanding the troops in the area. So you blow up where they are, and then it makes it hard for the troops to get orders. Very important, because Russian troops are unlike Western troops in that our troops, we've talked about this a lot before, and actually you guys weighed in giving a lot of your expertise, which was nice on this, but basically our troops are trained and empowered. I say our, meaning a lot of our Western troops, not just US, are trained and empowered to make decisions on their own. So they could pick, today we're going to go and strike here. We're going to do this. Russian troops are not. Russian troops are like little automaton that are told they're, Doctor Who, the automated men, what do they call them? But kind of like a marching man set in one direction, and that's the direction they go in, and they don't turn directions, right? The Russians. So if you start to take out their command in the area, it's harder for them to do anything because they don't. Cybermen, that's it, the Cybermen, because they are not empowered and they don't have the training to know what to do. So that's the first big thing. Logistics means literally centers where, logistics could be the storage facilities. So it could be more artillery storage, ammunition storage, things like that. It also could be, logistics could potentially be, again, bridges, railways, roads, things like that. Okay, trucks even. Things like that. So that's the first thing. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense also released video footage of Ukrainian aircraft, which is good because we haven't heard a lot about aircraft recently, operating high-speed anti-radiation missiles, also called HARM missiles. Russia's previously claimed that it has recovered fragments of these type of weapons, which are designed to locate and destroy radars. So they're using these missiles provided by the West to take out Russian radar. Now, why this matters? This is again from British Defense Intelligence. Russia prioritizes strong ground-based air defenses. The radar coverage which enables this is a critical capability in its Ukraine operation. A substantial sustained degradation of Russia's radars with HARM missiles would be a major setback to Russia's already troubled situational awareness. There you go. War games. This was a really interesting story that caught my eye yesterday. So Ukraine was, in fact, you guys have asked, a lot of people, I've asked too, a lot of people asked, why aren't the Ukrainians having a bigger counteroffensive, right? Is this the big one? If it's not the big one, why is it, right? And apparently, the Ukrainians were planning on having a much larger counteroffensive, that this attack they launched a few days ago was going to be much bigger, but they did a war game scenario with the U.S., with the Pentagon, behind the scenes, obviously. And by war games, in this case, it means, piece of paper, computers, whatever, but doing a hypothetical battle. And they determined that it was better to do something smaller than something bigger. Now, let me read you a little bit more. I don't recall if this is from the Washington Post or the New York Times, but in the buildup to the current Ukrainian counteroffensive, the United States urged Kyiv to keep the operation limited in both its objectives and its geography to avoid getting overextended and bogged down on multiple fronts. Multiple U.S. and Western officials told CNN. Those discussions involved engaging in wargaming with Kyiv, the sources said, and analytical exercises that were intended to help the Ukrainian forces understand what force levels they would need to muster to be successful in different scenarios. So basically, okay, Kyiv, you want to take over the town of Kherson. Here's what you'll need. How many troops, how many tanks, how many airplanes, blah, blah, blah. You want to go south of the town of Kherson and you actually want to take half of the entire province of Kherson, right? Well, that's going to take this many troops and this many guns and this much refueling, right? And this much resupplying of your troops. So it goes through all those different scenarios. The Ukrainians were initially considering, this is what I found fascinating. The Ukrainians were initially considering a broader counteroffensive, but narrowed their mission to the south in the Kherson region in recent weeks, U.S. and Ukrainian officials said. So what's interesting there is that they're saying that it looks like the Ukrainians were going to go wider, that they were going to go beyond Kherson. Now, whether that's Zaporizhzhia, which is the province just east, it could be Crimea, again, the province just south, occupied by the Russians. It could be even fighting in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass, which we talked about, right? Those two provinces there. Now, the one thing I will say is this could also be disinformation. I have a hard time believing that the U.S. would want to leak this information. Why would the U.S. be leaking? The thing you got to think about here, okay? We are dealing with very mature militaries, especially the United States. I mean, every military. The United States military leaked this to CNN. They would not be leaking this to CNN unless they thought somehow it was going to help the war against Russia by leaking this. So I'm not sure what the reason is, but it makes me wonder to some degree, is it misinformation or disinformation? Are they trying to make the Russians think that, oh, you're safe in the East, Ukraine won't go after you there right now, right? And then Ukraine does, or what? But this sounds like an article. I'm going to read the comments in a second. This sounds like an article where the U.S. is taking credit for making Ukraine do less. That's not what's going on here. The U.S. wouldn't do that. And Biden, if this was somebody at the Pentagon doing this, Biden would kill them. I don't think that's what's going on. This is intentional. I'm just not sure why. See what you guys think. I mean, you tell me, if any of you have any, I'm going to look at the comments here, have any theories as to why you think they would do this? Inspired woman. My dad at the Pentagon worked at the Pentagon doing war game scenarios. I think that would be kind of fun, wouldn't it? I war gamed the Falklands War recently. The UK won in 6 hours. All right, let's not go there. Another idea, if the Russians are having Z's like Zelensky in their vehicles, then the sign may be Poo like Putin. I'm not sure what that was about. Wesley Clark weighed in about a big offense today on CNN. Wesley Clark's great. He's a general, thank you, Jelly. He was the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. Long story short, but he's also the guy whose phone records I bought in an effort to prove how easy it was to buy phone records. And as a result, we passed a new information privacy law in America that got that banned. And I am the reason why, at least in America, you are required to give like a code to your phone company so that when you call, you've got to identify yourself with a code. That's because of me, but that's a whole other story. Wesley Clark, I met him once finally because I talked to him by phone to let him know I was going to do the story. And he was like, please don't. Nice guy. I did the story. So anyway, Wesley Clark weighed in about a big offense today on CNN. He says, as others do, Ukraine doesn't have the weapons to succeed in a counteroffensive and kick Russia out of Ukraine. We should arm them so they can. Wesley Clark has been arguing that from the beginning. he's been very critical of the U.S. in this and saying that we are not letting, we are not giving the Ukrainians nearly of what they need. What else we got here? Okay, that's all we got. Okay, I thought you guys, we got more news, but I thought you guys had more updates on that. That's fine. Yes, Russian spies in the German economics ministry. I saw that yesterday. That was a big surprise. So let's start talking about the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, okay? So let me start by saying the Russian embassy today, quoting the Russian foreign ministry spokeswoman, pretty much threatened to blow the plant up today. That's my read. I don't think it's an extreme read. Listen to this. So actually, I've got to put new ink in Mom's computer because it's missing words now. This is the Russian embassy UK tweeting. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson, I'm forgetting her name, is now busy with Maria something or other. Is now busy with important decision. Is now busy with important decision. They crack me up. They're such a stereotype of themselves. Is now busy with important decision. Why? What's the mic doing? All right, I adjusted the mic. I don't know what. John, adjust the mic is not a sufficient advice. Like, what do you want me to do with the mic? I mean, I appreciate the feedback, but don't give me tidbits of feedback. It's not helpful when I'm in the middle of this. Okay, tell me what you want me to do, and then maybe I'll do it. But yeah, mic is fine. Okay, but yeah, all right. Hang on. That's why I don't like the advice unless you're very specific, because then I get thrown here. So, but I just love that there is now busy EU is the EU. The EU is now busy with important decision. No, the EU is now busy with an important decision, not important decision, moose and squirrel. Whether or not to issue visas to Russians, it says. But radiation doesn't need a visa to cross borders. If something happens at Zaporizhzhia, it will not be about visas, passports, or borders. So what the Russians did, the Russians threatened to blow up the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in response to the Europeans making it harder for rich Russians to get visas to play in Ibiza and on the French Riviera. These people, there is a despicableness to this government that is really unfathomable to me, the way they approach things. I mean, now mind you, this is why I say, like, these are the same people that have been threatening nuclear war for 6 months now, right? I mean, remember this has been a good month or two now, but remember the last time they threatened nuclear war, they'd already threatened it like 30 times, and they threatened to bomb Berlin, then they were going to bomb Ireland, then they were going to bomb London, then they were going to bomb Paris. It's like, then they were going to bomb Poland. They finally brought that up, now they're threatening to blow up the nuclear plant. Again, I just wanted to raise it because partially you need to know who we're dealing with. Okay, this is who we're dealing with. This is what Russia is. So just to keep that in mind, they're terrorists. This is a terrorist position. I will say this: it's kind of funny too, because I'm going to show you this again. Actually, I put this up the other day. It was a map. It was a map done by the Ukrainians, but I believe it because also it shows more radiation going to Ukraine. But it was the Ukrainian Energy Agency doing an analysis of what. Hang on here. Of what. See if I can find it. What would happen if radiation escaped from Zaporizhzhia, the nuclear plant? And I don't know whether it was, the plant blows up, whether it was. Here we go. Whether it was the plant blowing up, whether it was a nuclear meltdown, whatever. I edited it. I edited the map today. So what you'll see is, well, I'll show you here. Okay, for starters, the black line is the separation between Ukraine and Russia. So Ukraine is to the west, Russia is to the east. So Russia's to the right. Okay, that's the first thing. When you look at it, you'll see. I'll get close to you guys. I'll step back and tell you what it is, and then you can see it. So the red is the worst. The red stripes is the worst radiation. The orange is second bad, and the yellow is better. I mean, the yellow is still radiation, but not as bad. You can see here that a lot of it hits Ukraine, but I would say almost an equal amount of Russia gets hit. It doesn't get hit as badly, but it gets hit. Now, it gets some of the orange, which is really bad, and it gets some of the red, which is very bad. And that red goes almost to the Russian city of Rostov. So you can see here too, that red spike goes almost to the Russian city of Rostov. That's very bad. The orange is still bad. And the yellow is still bad too, obviously. It's not like there's some good radiation. But you can see how a lot of it, because, and I'd looked at this today, as of August, sort of the winds change in Ukraine or whatever. It's like Mary Poppins, I guess. But the winds change, and you've got the wind now blowing from west to east, so that any explosion at that nuclear plant is heading towards Russia. So for the Russians to say, if something happens at Zaporizhzhia, it will not be about visas, passports, or borders. It doesn't need a visa to cross borders. It's like, you freaking morons, it's actually going to hit you. The second thing I will say is Russia is not just threatening a terrorist attack on the nuclear plant, they're threatening to attack NATO with the radiation from the terrorist attack from plant. And if that happens, then they're going to be in big trouble, because then we're all going to be at war. And at the very least, Ukraine is going to get every weapon it ever wanted if Russia does that. And then the war is going to be over in 2 months. Well, maybe not 2 months, but it's going to be big trouble for moose and squirrel if that happens. The International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors arrived today at Zaporizhzhia, the nuclear plant that the Russians are occupying in southern Ukraine. The IAEA is part of the United Nations. They are nuclear energy experts, and they were coming to the plant to inspect because there were obviously concerns that in the last several weeks there had been a lot of bombs, artillery, etc., hitting near the plant. And including this morning, by the way, something hit about 2 blocks away, quarter mile. Sorry, it's the way in American English, we talk about blocks. So we'll often say, oh, it's 2 blocks away. That means like a quarter of a mile. You can figure out in kilometers what that is. Quarter of a mile away. That immediately triggered an emergency shutdown of the plant. They had to switch over to what was it? Their electric generators, things like that. But it was fine. They walked through today. Now the walkthrough, the Russians, again, the chutzpah of the Russians in this. The walkthrough included a walkthrough right by a bunch of Russian vehicles with the Z on them inside the nuclear plant facilities. I mean, these people are just unbelievable. They were like, they keep like denying that they have vehicles in there. And then of course there's Russian military equipment literally inside the plant. They went through. The head of the plant said he'd seen enough, but he's leaving staff there till the 3rd, which would be Saturday. They're going to go through Saturday. And the goal is to leave staff there permanently to keep monitoring the safety at the plant. The problem is, will the Russians agree to that? Thank you, Ginger, for that. Not clear the Russians will agree to it. So we'll see. Let me see what else I've got here on Zaporizhzhia. If anything, I sort of did a summary without looking at my notes because I'm that good. No. Yep. Stay at the plant. Permanent presence. Shell landed within a quarter mile. This is the weird thing. So this is weird. Ukrainian intelligence says Russian forces are going to be evacuating personnel from the, I guess, Russian nuclear energy agency called Rosatom, for Russia, atom, so Rosatom. Personnel from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. According to Ukraine's intelligence directorate, Russian state nuclear monopoly Rosatom is planning to evacuate its employees from the Russian-seized plant. The preparation for evacuation is kept a secret to avoid panic among the personnel. Again, it's strongly suggesting that Russia's planning on something. I mean, you could say, oh, Russia's just very worried about the plant. Russia couldn't, I mean, first of all, Russia probably couldn't care less about its own personnel anyway. But I think what's going on here is that Russia is at least considering whether they're going to blow up the plant. I think they may. They're trying to do anything they can. They're losing. I mean, I say they're losing in the sense that it's a tie at this point. All the men Russia put in, sure, they've got 20% of Ukraine, which is a big deal. But now their troops are bogged down. The Ukrainians are pushing back. And the Russians, I think, aren't sure what to do. One of the things they could do is blow up a nuclear plant and try to convince the Europeans that this war isn't worth it anymore. And then the Europeans pull their support of Ukraine. Now, the Russians blow up that nuclear plant, and you may see quite the opposite happen, which is the West goes, that was an attack, that was an act of war on NATO. And we may not nuke you, but we're giving Ukraine everything it needs now moving forward. So that's a possibility. Moving on, in other news, the chairman of the board of directors of Lukoil, the Russian oil company, died today. It's like, how do you think he died? How do you think he died? Energy executive in Russia. You would be correct if you thought he died by falling out a window. Yes, he was in the hospital not feeling well and somehow fell out a window of the hospital and died. A little bit of background on this. So Lukoil, this is from the New York, I've got a couple different stories. New York Times, in March, Lukoil took an unusual stance among Russian businesses by calling for a fast resolution to the invasion of Ukraine, distancing itself from the official Kremlin line. At the time, he was chairman. The statement from the board of directors, headed by this guy, Maganov, expressed the company's deepest concerns about the tragic events in Ukraine and called for the soonest termination of the armed conflict. Quote, we strongly support a lasting ceasefire and a settlement of problems through serious negotiations and diplomacy, the company said. Reuters reported that two people who knew Mr. Maganov, so the Russians, of course, the Russians are saying he was very disturbed. He jumped. He committed suicide. In Russia, lots of people who are considered enemies of the state by Putin jump out of windows. Usually it's their balconies. They jump off their balconies. A lot of them. Nobody thinks any of them jumped off their balconies. They were thrown off their balconies by Putin's henchmen. So again, little hard to believe that yet another guy, made his way out a hospital window. Reuters interviewed two people who knew him, who said they believed it was highly unlikely that he had taken his own life. Now, he is not the first Russian energy executive to die. This year, on February 25th, one day after Putin ordered troops to cross into Ukraine, Alexander Tyulakov, a deputy general director of the treasury for Gazprom, Russia's energy giant, was found dead in his garage near St. Petersburg. In April, Vladislav Avayev, a former deputy president of Gazprom Bank, one of the largest Russian lenders and a bank with ties to Gazprom, of course, was found dead in an apartment in Moscow along with the bodies of his wife and daughter. Russian investigators said it appeared that Mr. Avayev had fatally shot his wife and daughter before taking his own life. Sure he did. In May, TASS reported that Alexander Subotin, a former Lukoil executive, had been found dead in a basement of a house in Mytishi, a town outside Moscow. And remember, I don't have it on here. Remember, there was the one in Spain as well. The guy in Spain, and wasn't that another one where his wife and I think son were killed? And once again, they tried to claim he committed suicide and decided to take his family with him because, that happens all the time. Maybe that does happen sometimes, but come on, come on. Poisoning is their weapon of choice. That is true. Yep. Betsy's saying, but Putin, I think, finds a certain beauty. Well, the thing is, hanging somebody or throwing them out a window is really creepy. Let's face it. Poisoning, you're sick, you're dying, you're not sure. Going out that window, make sure that you're in mass, I don't know. Although I guess poison is pretty painful too. Who knows? Ukraine sentences a Russian tank commander to 8.5 years in prison. According to the prosecutor general's office, he had assaulted and robbed a Ukrainian civilian in the town of Kalievin, threatening to shoot him with a gun. The Russian military is suffering from severe manning shortages in Ukraine, according to a U.S. official who told the Washington Post that it's likely that Russia's defense ministry will move to recruit contract service members to make up for these perennial shortages, including, this was wild to me, including by compelling wounded soldiers to re-enter combat. So they are hearing reports that they're forcing soldiers who are injured to go back to the front, even if obviously they're injured and they're not ready to go back to the front, but they so don't have enough men. I mean, interesting. Radoslav is saying, I think you're in, you're Bulgaria. Yeah, I think you're in Bulgaria. Is saying the media here says that there are 8 oligarchs dead in total so far. Yeah, I remember it being, I was going to say 6 or something. I remember it being more than 3 or 4. Yeah. what else did I have here? A rocket or missile. Oh, this was good. I saw this video earlier today and meant to show you guys. A rocket or missile fired from near the Russian city of Belgorod. Belgorod is the Russian city that is right across the border from Ukraine, northeastern Ukraine. So if you got, pretend Ukraine's a square. I know it's not, but pretend it is. In the northeast, you've got Kharkiv, Ukrainian town. It's maybe 15, 20 miles from the border with Russia. Thank you, Mike. From the border with Russia. You then cross the border with Russia, go another 25 miles, and you're at the Russian town of Belgorod. So it's very close to Ukraine. And the Ukrainians, we believe, someone has been blowing up oil depots, ammunition depots, train bridges, all sorts of things in Belgorod over the last several months. Something happened this weekend too, we're not sure what, that freaked out, some explosion there that freaked everybody out in town, and they started running for the trains and their cars to get the hell out of town. So something's going on in Belgorod. Well, the Russians apparently thinking they were going to fire back from Belgorod and show some force. A rocket or missile fired from near Russian city of Belgorod appears to have gone off course. I shouldn't laugh because a lot of people died. Have gone off course and crashed into a residential area, according to multiple social videos updated to Telegram channel Belgorod Informant on Wednesday night. China and India are taking part in large-scale joint military exercises led by Russia in its eastern military district. The two countries' defense ministries have confirmed. Belarus, Mongolia, Tajikistan. Yeah, I was going to say Tajikistan's not how you say it. Tajikistan and other countries are also participating. I believe India is participating as well. The one thing just to throw in here, because I only included the story because people always ask about it, Russia's been doing these exercises since 2018. So, this would be the fourth year or so of it, or fifth year. So, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Finally, the International Press Institute has awarded the Free Media Pioneer Award to 7 independent Ukrainian media outlets, among them the Kyiv Independent, Stop Fake, which I was not aware of, and Ukrainska Pravda. So there you go. All right. That is it for the news. Boy, that took a while. I knew I had a lot of news, but we were talking about stuff. That really took a while. Wow. Sorry about that. Although I guess we were chatting as well. My water. So we can do questions, as always. We can do questions. We can do whatever you guys want. Why don't I actually, just to remind folks, on TikTok, go to you can either submit questions here, but I won't always see it. I've been trying to get the pronunciation. I had studied Russian for a year, so my pronunciation isn't terrible. But with Ukrainian, it still can be a little weird. Also, it's almost harder to read transliterated Ukrainian in English, because then I'm not entirely sure what the letters were in Ukrainian. And you guys seem to pronounce things a little bit differently than the Russians do. So I can read it. I can certainly read something the way a Russian would probably pronounce it. Even though I may not understand the word, it's the first thing they taught us to do was read the alphabet and be able to speak it. But yes, so I was reading it in English, so I'm glad you think I pronounced it well. English Russian. So anyway, yeah, let's go to the Q&A on my TikTok app if you want. And I can put questions there. Let me see here. Callisto saying, from Ukrainian sources, it looks like there are spies that leaked the counteroffensive plans in the south to the Russians. According to Ukrainian sources, the reason the Russians ambushed the troops in many places. Oh, that's interesting. That's bad. That's bad. Elise is asking, have you heard any Chinese response to the UN report on Xinjiang and the Uyghurs? I can pronounce Uyghur correctly. Xinjiang, I'm not sure. The report was very damning. I only saw this briefly today. Human Rights Report out today. I'm not up on it totally because I also, to some degree, wasn't paying attention. But doing these updates has forced me to sort of ignore other news. Unless it's Trump or Ukraine, I kind of space out. So I did see the report, Elise, but I don't know anything about it. I just saw the report. That's how I knew it was like a human rights report out today. But I don't know anything about it. I am in Chicago visiting Ma, but normally I am based in Washington, D.C. So let me go here and hang on a sec. I will look at TikTok in the Q&A and see if anybody put a question there. TikTok. Oh, hang on. Always curious who's all right. Oh, hang on. TikTok. Boom. Q&A. There we go. Miria Report had an ex-NATO commander on today saying they are lining up for layered attack, taking many RIPs, eventually cutting off Crimea. I'm not entirely sure what you meant by that, Dark Chef. I'm not entirely understanding what you wrote. An ex-NATO commander on today saying they are lining up for layered attack, taking many RIPs, eventually cutting off Crimea. Okay, what I do get from that is cutting off Crimea. Now, some of you had, I knew already that Crimea gets its water via Kherson, okay, the province right north of it. Crimea, occupied by the Russians since 2014. And the Ukrainians had cut off Xinjiang. Oh boy. The Ukrainians had cut off water to Crimea, and once the Russians reinvaded in the north, they turned the water back on. So what I would not be surprised would be the Ukrainians trying to cut off Crimea again, but cut it off from, again, water and supplies from, well, let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on. I'm going to see if I can pull up a map showing you all. Usually, hang on, British Defense Defense Twitter is what I'm looking for. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. They're always good about putting up a map, sort of showing the latest. Oops, is this the latest? Here we go. Here we go. All right. They show sort of the latest invasion save image. Let me go to my saves image and show you. Only because I think it's interesting to see. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. So the pink is the part the Russians have invaded. Okay. I don't even need to get very close. That thing at the very bottom right here is Crimea. Okay. You guys can see in both of these things. So Crimea is the very bottom. All of that's Ukraine. Kherson is the province right north of Crimea. You've also got probably a little bit of Zaporizhzhia there. Okay. Two different provinces right north. You can see how if you're coming from Crimea, you have two ways of getting to Russia. One is by going up and all the way over, and that would be like one supply line going back and forth. Now, that's also Crimea supplying the Russian troops all up there, okay? Crimea is also itself supplied across a bridge into Russia. So if you look at Crimea up close, you see how eastern Crimea, it changes colors, that's Russia. And there's a bridge there, the Kerch Bridge it's called. I'll show you guys here. You can see at the bottom there how there's the bridge, and then it turns into Russia. Now, actually, if I can hold my hand from shaking, hard to tell. I'm looking at the provinces, hard for you guys to tell. But anyway, you can see there how there's the bridge there. That is the other way that the Russians are being supplied. So supplies are coming across that bridge into Crimea and going up from Crimea into the other occupied areas. If the Ukrainians are able to cut off Crimea from the north, for example, by taking all of Kherson and maybe some of Zaporizhzhia if necessary, that stops Crimea from reinforcing the Russian troops in that area. So in other words, Crimea would go through Kherson and help the troops in Zaporizhzhia. They could no longer do it if they get cut off. So maybe that's some of what you were hearing them talk about today in terms of trying to cut off. Now, the other big thing to do would be that Kerch Bridge is a big deal. That bridge that, again, just to show you, in the south, okay, that bridge in the southeastern Crimea. So you see how it goes east and then it changes colors. That ends up being Russia there. There's a bridge going across. You can see there. So south and then east, that little bit going over is Ukraine, and then it turns into Russia. There's a bridge across there called the Kerch Bridge, and a lot of people have said they'd like to see that bridge blown up, because then the Russians in Crimea are trapped. They can't escape, and they can't get more supplies. It causes all sorts of trouble for the Russian troops in Crimea, which would be a big deal. Let me look for another question. I don't want to go too long here. I guess that's true. We were laughing at the beginning about the howitzer. I don't want to go too long today. As I said, my voice was getting weird, although it's feeling better today. What would happen if Ukraine wins? Wow. I mean, I guess it depends what you mean by what would happen, right? I mean, sort of the question was for different scenarios. I do have a YouTube channel. It's John Aravosis DC. So my last name, Aravosis, but John, John, Aravosis, DC. And I'm broadcasting on YouTube at the same time here. The thing is, if Ukraine wins by kicking Russia all the way out, it's kind of hard to say. I can't use my tablet for showing maps because I'm talking to you on my tablet on TikTok. Haha. Ain't no way to do it. But it's hard to say what happens next because the big what happens next, in my view, thank you, Vicky, for the heart, is what happens next with Russia, right? I mean, if Ukraine's able to kick Russia totally out, as they're kicking Russia totally out of Ukraine, are the Russians not going to use chemical weapons, biological weapons, or small nuclear weapons, right? I mean, that's the first question. I don't know. If the Russians are kicked out, does it end Putin's presidency? Thank you, Marcy, for that. If it ends Putin's presidency, is it sort of democratically? So not democratically, but meaning, does he step down? Does he get overthrown by the military? By the intelligence services? I mean, does a bigger police state come in? Do other republics, and not other republics, but do other parts of Russia kind of rise up and say, well, you're a paper tiger. We're gonna rise up now too. So all of a sudden you have a civil war break out in Russia. Right. And that's where Putin would be shoved out a window. Putin would jump out a window. Exactly. So, I mean, my suspicion is if Ukraine wins, which would be great, the big question is what happens with Russia? And what does Russia do? I mean, does Russia, I guess they can't really strike out, meaning lash out, because what do you have to lash out with? Nuclear weapons, but they're not going to do that because that would be just stupid. I mean, it would be stupid. They would get nothing out of it. So I don't know. I mean, I hope Russia wins. I mean, I hope Ukraine wins. I hope they throw everybody out. Defenestration. That's very funny. I saw somebody defining that today on TikTok. It's always been one of my favorite words. Yeah, I don't know. And actually, Russia falling apart, we want to be careful because it may sound nice to have Russia fall apart because it's turning into a dictatorship and we don't like it. But bad things happen sometime when countries fall apart. You can have civil wars. They've got nuclear weapons. Do they get desperate and use the nuclear weapon against another region in their own country? But we don't really want nuclear bombs flying through the air because that has the potential of hurting the rest of us too. So, all right, guys, I'm going to call it quits. It's 2 minutes after the hour. Thank you for joining me. Tonight, I will go over to my Discord and we'll hang out a little bit. Discord.aravosis.com. I don't want to do the recap today. Let's skip the recap. I know. Let's skip the recap. It's a long, because it was so long today. I'd rather not do it. But go to Discord, discord.aravosis.com. When you get there, scroll all the way down. And in the voice channels, one of them is John's after show. So I will go there in a second. I want to run upstairs and get a little chapstick. And I will join you all there. Tomorrow, let's see what happens. Because I've got a friend visiting from DC for the next 3 days. So the weekend's not an issue, but tomorrow I'm going to be running around in Chicago all day. I am going to have no time to prepare for a show tomorrow night. I am thinking because tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so in just an hour, Biden is going to be giving his big speech about democracy and the threat that the MAGA movement, Trump's Make America Great Again movement, is posing to our democracy. I may come on and do a quick half hour tomorrow morning talking about Biden's speech. I think I'm going to do that. So let me watch the speech first and decide. But after the speech, I'll decide. And if I do decide, Nathan, good to see you. We haven't seen you in a while. Or I haven't seen you in a while. Maybe you've been there, but good to see you. I just saw you. Right. Good night. But yeah, let's see. The after show is going to be on Discord, discord.aravosis.com. And then you got to do all the Discord magic to make it happen. But yeah, let me see. I'm going to watch Biden tonight. And if I'm going to do it, which I probably will, I'll set it up for tomorrow morning, maybe 9 a.m. And I'll just do a quick half hour, maybe just we can talk about his speech and what it means and all that. Not a bad. And then that'll be tomorrow's show. Because as I said, tomorrow night, I'm not going to be able to prepare at all. And tomorrow night, after being downtown all day, I may not be in the mood not the mood, I may not have the energy to do a show, even though I could talk about Biden without preparing. So anyway, all right, guys. it's 8 p.m. Eastern, which would be 5 p.m. in California. I'm sorry, tonight. Tomorrow morning would be 9 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Central. So that'd be probably 9 a.m. Central, which would be 10 a.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. New York, 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. in California. Okay, guys, let me go, and I'll see you all over at Discord. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining us. And you all